If God does not exist, we must make one. Nietzsche. What if the God Emperor is actually Euphrati Keeler, ascendant in the warp? Keeler was a remembrancer attached to the Sons of Horus fleet during the late stages of the Great Crusade. She survived through the events of the Horus's downfall and the subsequent heresy. While her origins are not documented, her abilities and powers are unique to the time and mirror the miracles in current Warhammer 40k timeline. The beginning. Whisperhead. Keeler descends to the planet with a force of space marines to record their actions. This will be the Legion's first recorded encounter with a neverborn called Samus, a prominent demon tied to the event of the entire heresy and humanity. Samus was using the Vox to taunt and scare the Imperial forces by talking to them directly. For Keeler, however, he was hissing at her the moment she arrived on the planet. The thing is, she never wore a Vox unit and could still hear the demon. This was the first sign that she is not a regular human, but somehow attuned to the warp. During the mission, Keeler's remembrancer group is attacked by Samus possessing a space marine named Jubal. She is the only survivor. However, the scene of the attack cuts to black as soon as the demon gets to her and changes perspective to Gabriel Loken, who comes in to save her. Traumatized by this event, Keeler seeks solace in Delectito Divinitatus. Demon banishment. During the early stages of her newfound belief, she had an encounter with a demon accidentally summoned by Kirill Cinderman from a Word Bearer's book. In the chaos and confusion of a warp entity emerging inside the library, Keeler stood her ground, raising the Imperial Aquila with a shout that would echo through eternity. The Emperor protects. And the demon was banished back to the warp. Keeler herself passed out with the Aquila still burning hot. Now, this event demonstrates that she was able to wield the fate of humanity as a weapon very early on. This was way before the Emperor was stuck on the Golden Throne. The coma and reawakening. After the incident with the demon, Keeler falls into a deep coma and is hidden by her flock of believers on the lower decks of the Vengeful Spirit. While people approach her, they are assaulted by horrific visions of death and decay. While we don't know exactly what happened here, we may speculate that she had undergone some kind of spiritual battle within the warp. After she wakes up, she's positively glowing and is full of charisma and clarity of purpose. Renewed, she started preaching to the cult of the Emperor on the ship, a cult which through her grew faster and faster. But although she preached the faith in the God Emperor, we must consider that it was her that people started believing in. The cult existed before, but lacked focus and a figurehead. Now, everyone knew of Keeler the Saint, Keeler who banished the demon. From this point, she also exhibits an ability to see within people, including Space Marines and maybe even Primarchs. Later in the Siege of Terra, she would see the horror of the Sons of Horus Astartes, who she saw as screaming spirits trapped by demons that were gestating in their flesh. The worst part being most of them didn't even realize that their souls were fighting and losing. Which is also one interesting perspective on the traitor legions. She has a profound influence on the Astartes, as seen in her conversation with Iacton Cruz, the half-herd, which allowed her to guide or manipulate certain characters like Garo and Sigismund. Even Horus recognizes her and the cult as a threat and demands they be eliminated. Soon after, she is escorted off the ship as the believers fear for her life. During the escape, she points to the dead guard vessel Eisenstein, assuring everyone they will be safe there. How could she know that Nathaniel Garo, the captain of that ship, was a loyalist and will help them escape? Now at this point you might think, well, she's obviously a psyker, but let's skip ahead a few chapters of her story. After their return to Terra, Keeler is held with all the Death Guard loyalists, while Malcador decides their fate. Because of the description of her actions and powers, she is being interrogated by the Sisters of Silence and tested for her psyker abilities. And they find none. The sisters clear her as a non-psyker. She also does not seem to suffer too much in their presence. Now, back to the Eisenstein, because this next part is quite interesting. While on the Death Guard ship, she makes a profound impression on Nathaniel Garo. And during the escape from the system, the ship is fired on and is badly damaged. One of the systems that is damaged are the Gellerfields, and to those who don't know, it's a system that allows ships to traverse the warp without instantly dying to a flood of demons boarding the ship. Without it, their escape is basically impossible. Yet, Keeler tells them to jump into the warp regardless, and Garo does not even question her, to the shock of other Astartes, who know the fate of vessels trying to attempt this. They make it out, and after a brief battle, are basically stuck in the warp. While telling the story of their arrival, Garo informs Dorn that Horus betrayed the Imperium, and Dorn becomes furious. He slaps Garo, breaking his armor, and is about to execute him, when Keeler rushes into the room, basically commanding him to stop with a shout. Everyone in the room froze, including Dorn. So yes, she was able to influence a Primarch and talk him down. What more, she was able to pass through Imperial fists guarding the entrance, and they have no idea why they agreed to let her in. Now, so far we have established that Keeler is not a psyker, she can use the power of fate to banish demons, and maybe even protect ships in the warp. The same power is probably used to soothe and empower her followers. She can influence Astartes and Primarchs with words only. People believe in her, and by proxy in the God Emperor. Aiding Nathaniel Garo in the battle against Mortarion. Now this one is quite interesting, as not only do we see her directly powering up Garo with the power of fate, so he can even try fighting Mortarion, but after he dies, his soul is taken in by the God Emperor. Mortarion notices her power and is deeply intrigued. He claims to see Keeler as a prism focusing and reflecting a far greater power. Now that power is the human fate. It's human spirit and belief. In one instance, during the siege, she was showing Garrow visions of the future and her many deaths as paintings, thus explaining some of her knowledge. But like all foresight in 40k, visions shift and change, they cannot be accurately followed. Now, we must remember that by this point in time, fate in the Emperor was still against the imperial truth and could be punished severely. Malkado's interest in the matter led to a custodian investigating the many cults that appeared in the palace, and in this he was aided by Keeler. Sadly, the biggest of them turned out to be chaos worshippers, trying to summon demons inside the defended areas. Although Keeler was able to kill the demon leading the cult, she was still deemed too much of a threat and thus locked away. Even after being imprisoned by the Imperials for spreading fate, her cult only grew stronger. She was later released after promising she would stop the sermons, but it was way too late by then. Even her mere presence assisted the defenders. Stopping time. While on Terra, Keeler had many encounters with the likes of Garrow, Sigismund, and Loken. The first two seemingly drawn to her, or maybe by her. During one such event, Imperial forces were attempting to arrest her in her temple, and Nathaniel Garrow was ready to fight other loyalists to protect her. Yet, while he was ready to strike, time froze for everyone but them. And Keeler asked him to let them take her. Garrow was shocked at her power and demanded to know how she did it, but no answer came. It did, however, appear to put a big strain on her, so we know it was not an outside force intervening. Seemingly appearing out of thin air, she displayed an ability to appear in a meeting or a place like she was always there. Something that confused even Space Marines that could not register her approach in any way. The last day of the siege, Keeler leads an army of refugees in the Imperial Palace. Civilians, militia, astropaths, anyone who joins. Here, we even see the first glimpses into potential Sisters of Battle, as we have an all-female squad torching demons with flames and following a saint. This might not seem important now, but it will be later on. Now, Keeler follows a voice that seemingly guides her for a moment during the crucial time, most likely Malkador while on the Golden Throne. Yet the people follow her, believe in her. Millions upon millions follow her through the desolate warp-torched palace. All that's left of humanity on Terra. She believed she was following the God Emperor, but the people were following her. During this pilgrimage, she encounters sons of Horus Astartes and has to confront them. It is here where she looks into the souls of the 16 Legion Astartes and sees them desperately fighting, screaming, and crying. It is here we see the horror of the traitor Legion Astartes. They are here to kill her, but just like in the first meeting with the demon Samus, she is saved by a sudden appearance of a champion, Sigismund, and his now Black Templars crash into the ranks of the enemy and cut them down. Sigismund, who is her champion of fate, and is miraculously there exactly when she needs him. Soon after, her flock and the Black Templars protecting them reach the outskirts of the Hollow Mountain. Here, they are confronted by a massive army of the Death Guard. The Black Templars prepare to have their final suicidal charge at the enemy. But we see something the Death Guard never imagined: lack of fear. The humans no longer fear them. Inspired by Keeler, they charge the Death Guard ranks with whatever weapon they have or don't have, and they drag them down with sheer numbers and will. Now, to motivate mostly unarmed civilians to rush a Chaos Marine army takes something more than pure charisma. And finally, we arrived at the last crucial part of the theory: the Hollow Mountain. The mountain is occupied by dark angels who dropped here from orbit in hopes of reigniting the Astronomicon so that Ultramarines can arrive and break the siege of Terra. All the refugees, and there are millions of them, take shelter here. And Keeler, along with a few others, is confronted by the Dark Angel librarians, trying to fix the beacon and failing. Only when Keeler starts using her gifts to calm the people and lift their spirits does the mountain respond. It is through her that their faith and prayers start to resonate with the structure. You also have to love the fact that it is Cypher, Zahariel at this time, who notices this and is instrumental in helping her reawaken the Astronomicon, and I believe giving birth to the entity we know as the God Emperor. With millions of people in the mountain joining Keeler in her prayer and giving up their energy, they create the power that will later exist as the divine being. Many of them die in the process, but such a grand event would require sacrifice at a large scale. Although, as they burn up and turn into energy, perhaps it was not really death, but rather becoming energy. And all of this is channeled through Keeler, and the mountain explodes with the raw power of humanity's fate. This is also the power that the Emperor uses to defeat Horus. For you see, he did not create the power of belief, or the God Emperor behind it. He merely wielded the psychic force provided by it. And thus, I believe that it is actually Keeler that is the entity known as the God Emperor of mankind. Why appear as the Golden Giant? Why keep the mask? Well, because it was necessary for the people to keep their faith. They needed a symbol, a light in the dark, someone powerful to protect them. And Keeler, being the truest of believers, would gladly sacrifice her identity and existence to bring that being into light. I'd like to also point out a very interesting quote from Keeler herself. "We create our own gods, and the blessed Emperor is the master of mankind."